The early European stretch of the season continues as we see the drivers take to their Formula machines to an Italian classic, a racetrack that literally sits next to downtown and sees students peering out the window of a local high school next door who are anxiously waiting to see race cars blast around the circuit. That's right, folks, we are here in Imola, so get ready to watch round number 3 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. You'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joey Atterbury, and joining me in the booth is the one and only Reese Gardiner. Behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. One of the most well-known tracks in all of Italy, let's take a look at what makes this place special with our track guide.
Welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsports history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no choice but to alter it in the name of safety. While it originally featured mostly fast, sweeping corners, its modern 3-mile or 5-kilometer version is punctuated by tricky chicanes and incredibly technical turns. iRacing includes the Grand Prix layout and a moto version, which adds one more chicane to the front stretch. Tamburello is perhaps the most notorious of the corners for claiming the life of multi-time world champion Ayrton Senna when it was still a single breathtaking turn. Now the Triple Apexer not only offers potential passing opportunities, but catches out drivers quite frequently. While heavy braking zones are everywhere, because few places allow the cars to get up to speed, overtaking is generally seen as an exercise in frustration. As if to almost counteract this quality, the track itself is situated in a gorgeous public park and sends the drivers through the beautifully calming Italian countryside. It also includes a fair bit of elevation change in which the track is split between the higher up back half and the lower first portion. It's no wonder that this place still proves popular with drivers and fans in spite of its difficulties in history. The Tifosi keep returning each and every time the sound of engines roar among the trees, and who can blame them?
Well, it's an Italian classic that's been around the block or two and seen some updates over the years, Reese, but we are here on the most current version.
Indeed we are, Joey. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast. I love this circuit. It's a great challenge. Obviously, its history is tinged with tragedy, and that's a big reason why we have the layout we do. But this 3-mile, nearly 5-kilometer long layout that we currently have is a fantastic version of this circuit. We have plenty of corners here, chicanes, heavy braking zones, not much room for the drivers to rest. The main overtaking opportunities, I'd imagine, are at the first real chicane at Tamburello, down at the hairpin at Tosa as well, and maybe into the first of the Ravazza corners at the end of the lap. Quite a difficult circuit to get right, especially with those harsh curbs. These guys are going to have a big workout around here.
The key word that you just mentioned is those curbs. Watch out for those apex curbs. They can definitely upset the platform. And we also have our points championship to go through. It is early rounds out here. We've got the F1 and the F2 drivers' points. Right now it is Marco Sanfilippo leading the way over John Olsen. His brother Danilo Sanfilippo there in third place. Pepe Fuentes in fourth, with Rolly Wallbank sitting there in fifth place. Also have Courtaniemi, JDS, maybe not the early couple rounds that he wants. Remember, he just collected his first championship that last season. Togo Asada, JB Masada, and DeMay all inside the top 10. But we also have the F2 point standings.
Yeah, indeed we do. Up on top of that one, John Stevens. Keith Herner, 17 points behind, and Thomas Silbernagel is only 3 points further behind that. Very close as well between Ben Summer and Tamas Bartfai for fourth place, and Daniel Gallis and Jason Krakowiak only separated by 1.2. Equal on points for ninth, Kleber Botaro Mora and Rodrigo Miranda. Very close indeed. There's going to be a lot of changes in those F2 standings by the time we get out of this round. In the team standings, meanwhile, SEO 9000, the Sanfilippo brothers, right at the top of the standings. Sheer domination, Joey.
Yeah, and then you see Minority Team, Team Alfa Romeo, Arrows Beta, Tyrrell Racing Team, all inside the top 5. And just as you heard Reese say a moment ago, we're very, very early days in this season, only round number 3. So a lot of these points are definitely going to shake up as the races go on and the drivers collect all of the points as we go. But we also have today's race details. I've been keep mentioning it is round number 3 of 12, and the drivers are going to do 25 laps here at Imola. It is an open setup as always, so it's up to you to tweak and tune the car, see the best setup that kind of fits your driving style the best. If you find yourself lacking a little speed, go join the community, go join the Discord. They're always willing to share the fast stuff out there. No spare cars, so if you run into any problems or your competitors, well, you got to deal with it in a drive-through penalty at 17 incident points, disqualification at 25 incident points. Now, Reese, there is a ton of runoff here, lots of gravel, but those curbs can also damage the car.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if you damage the floor of this car, it's basically game over. Remember, these are ground effect machines. They depend quite a bit on keeping the seal to the road with those side skirts on the side pods. And if that seal is broken by going airborne, or if you damage the Venturi tunnels underneath the car by going over too harsh of a bump, then you lose the majority of the downforce that these cars generate. So what you're going to be seeing is drivers, yes, touching the curbs, clipping them where they need to, but largely staying off them unless they absolutely need to use them.
Best way to think about these cars is a giant go-kart. And if you don't have those rear 2 tires on the ground, well, guess what? You're not driving forward out of those corners. So yeah, you want to make sure you keep the platform stable. Watching Dylan Freckleton come down the hill into turn number 14, known as the first of the Ravazzas, and then come into turn number 15. This corner is always tricky because it leads out onto the very, very long front straightaway. Dylan's tracking pretty good, about 1.5 seconds better than his previous lap time that he puts down. 132.590 will jump him up into 5th place provisionally.
Yeah, good job from Dylan Freckleton there on his first lap. Here's Jack David Spickett, reigning champion of the series. currently sitting 7th, but making a big improvement himself. That is 1 whole second's worth, and he now goes to 5th, putting Freckleton back to 6th. Good stuff from JDS. Daniel Gallis, meanwhile, unfortunately messing up the entry there to Variante Alta, which literally means the high chicane. It's the highest point on the circuit, and it's a chicane. Pretty self-explanatory.
No, I would think that the Italians would leave it simple. They would probably describe it with hand gestures if they could, as Ellis Spice comes across the line here. Improves his time, a 134.6. So he jumps up into 16th place, and I really think that's going to do it for our times on the board. Oh, no, never mind. Daniel Gallis will make the sprint to the line before time is out. And doesn't look like he's actually putting down a lap time, so he's going to stay in the back, and we will have our starting grid here momentarily. It is Topi Korteniemi that will be starting as your pole sitter in that number 1 car. And he's got a familiar face in Pauli Partanen loading up alongside him on row number 1. Marco Sanfilippo starting in 3rd with Danilo Sanfilippo next to him in 4th. Jack David Spickett, previous champion, in 5th with Dylan Freckleton in 6th. And then in 7th, we have Bjorn Ackerman and AJ Roper in 8th. On row number 5, it's John Stevens and Jean-Francois Boscus.
Patrick Samaran will start out of 11th spot, the Frenchman, alongside Jack Kent, with Mickey Friesen starting lucky 13th. Hannah Fechner is in 14th, with Nathan Finnegan and Ellis Spice rounding out our next couple of rows. Christophe Demey and Kevin Parrish start 17th and 18th, with the top 20 rounded up by Carlos Lescano and Jason Clapper. Only 2 other cars, Daniel Gallis and Bruno Araya. Clapper, Gallis, and Araya not setting times in qualifying, so we don't quite have a read on their pace just yet.
As typical with Jason Clapper, he usually doesn't put down a qualifying effort, and then he starts in the back and tries to have as many smiles per lap as he can get in making as many passes. I'm curious about these cars, number 3 and number 4, the Sanfilippos. Remember, they are up on top of that championship standings over there. And then also, Dylan Freckleton paired with JDS is an interesting combination on row number 3. Dylan always brings some speed, and you know that JDS wants to defend that title out there as well.
Oh, he absolutely does. He's focusing on points. Got on the podium last week at Zolder, so certainly has a lot to play for. Some interesting little sibling roasting between the two Sanfilippos. Marco Sanfilippo at the end of qualifying said, "Dan, what a terrible lap." Danilo Sanfilippo setting a time about 0.6 of a second slower than his brother. But we're about to get started here, Joey. Let's go.
The revs are up, patiently waiting for Barney to throw that green flag, and there it goes. Oh my goodness, our P2 runner does not get going. That is the number 2 car of Pauli Partanen that is falling through the field, but our pole sitter is out front, Topi Korteniemi, as we all head into the first chicane and through Tamburello for the first time. It seems like all of the cars are contact-free and off of the curves.
Yeah, big breakaway from our top 2 at the moment. Korteniemi leading Marco Sanfilippo on the way into the Villeneuve chicane. Danilo Sanfilippo now leading the fight for everyone else as there's a spinner out of Villeneuve. That's Bjorn Ackerman, who's gone around on the run into Tosa.
He is spun off to the right side. I think he is really the only car that was affected by it. And now is the run up the hill for the first time to Piratella. This fast sweeping turn number 8. Oh, 2 wheels off into the dirt there for the blue car. I believe that was Jack David Spickett barely keeping it on the racetrack.
Yeah, I think that was contact with Boscus on the way into Piratella. So, unfortunately, a little bit of contact for those guys as they make their way out of Acqua Minerale and up to Variante Alta. You can't go side by side through the chicane here. It's certainly not going to work out well for you. Make sure that you're single file as Christophe Demey runs deep and across the grass there. Well, plenty of stuff going on this first lap here. Pauli Partanen, meanwhile, didn't quite get off the line like he wanted to, but in 6th place and now pressuring AJ Roper for the top 5.
I think the white and blue number 2 that we are riding on board with right now is going to be the car to watch. See him using that slipstream up 170, 175 miles an hour before he has to pick that brake marker, low that thing down, and hopefully keep it off of the apex curbs. You see him made a nice pass on AJ Roper there, pretty textbook just on the straightaway. The next car up is that purple car of Dylan Freckleton, as Jean-Francois Bosca seems to be maybe slipping through the field a little bit. Remember, JDS got by him not too long ago. I guess he's still putting the pressure on the back of that blue car right there, but he has got a whole train behind him.
Oh, he certainly has. It's almost Noah's Arking it with Nathan Finnegan and Patrick Samaran negotiating 11th place there. Nathan's going to defend into Piratella early on the brakes for Patrick, but it's deep for the yellow car of Nathan Finnegan. He's going to have to go defensive now into Aqua Minerale. This is another one of those corners where side-by-side on the entry is not a good idea, and ultimately it's almost going to lose Patrick Samaran. Another position to Hannah Fechner.
Yeah, I think that Hannah did a very good job being heads up right there and making sure she kept that car tucked down to the apex, because you're right, Samaran kind of was way out wide in that turn number 9 and 10 complex, had to bring it right back on the track. And Pauli Partanen just made a mistake in turn number 14, the first of the Ravazzas, and goes off the track. So he's going to have to repass AJ Roper, which he did just a lap ago in this exact same spot. A little bit more embarrassing this time, though.
Yeah, he tried to get the move done on Dylan Freckleton and just overshot the braking zone. It was nothing more than that. He braked too late. Tyres not quite up to temperature or pressure yet, so the grip was not available to him. Meanwhile, here's Fechner trying to get past Samaran into Tamburello, and Samaran decides, I'm going to take the old school route through that corner in response, and just avoids getting cleaned up there by Mickey Friesen, as Friesen now tries at Villeneuve. This is turning out to be quite a chaotic race. It looks like Fechner's had a problem. She spun just out of Villeneuve herself. Many drivers having spun in the opening part of this race, including Björn Ackermann, who did the same thing at Zolder on lap 1 last week. So it seems he has to get used to trying to work his way through the field.
These switchback chicanes here at Imola can be very, very tricky on corner entry. And trust me, if you get the corner entry wrong, you're carrying so much speed into it that you're never going to come out the other side, the exit of it, properly. So I think that if you overcook a brake marker, or maybe just carry a little bit too much speed on the entry side of things, it can be very, very difficult to catch the car in the back half of those chicanes, as it looks like now Patrick Samaran having some issues himself in that number 16 car. I saw that Pauli Partanen was right back on AJ Roper for what is 6th place again. He actually just made his way around AJ Roper, so he is back up on the proverbial horse.
Yeah, certainly is. Going to have to try again on Dylan Freckleton. Some incredible pace being set now by Pauli Partanen as he tries to keep that going. Here's Björn Ackermann on Zoom as well as in the sim. And, you know, for someone who's spun on lap 1, he doesn't look all that frustrated. He's just eyes forward and focusing on making his way forward. He's got Kevin Parrish and Christophe Demey up ahead of him. Meanwhile, Partanen has just passed Dylan Freckleton for 4th spot. We're going to get a view of what happened to Patrick Samaran just a few moments ago. You talked about losing the back end of the car in those chicanes. Well, that's exactly what happened to Patrick there. Just too much curb and around he went.
They're very, very tricky. And speaking about that chicane that we're watching, it is also kind of is at the top of a hill. So it kind of plateaus. It's an uphill brake zone and then kind of flattens out there at apex. So there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of managing the chassis underneath you. But this is our race up front. So the number 3 car, Marco Sanfilippo, currently chasing down Topi Kortenjaimi in that number 1. And Marco's keeping him nice and honest, pretty much replicating the lap time, only a half second back in that slipstream. But what I wonder is if Topi can kind of maintain this half second, if he's got the thing trimmed out, I wonder if Marco can actually pull him in down the straightaway to make a pass.
Yeah, there's potential there. You know, it's always interesting to see the setup strategy that goes on in the Lotus 79, because it's a car, it's basically one of the first cars that really made full use of ground effect aerodynamics. So you will see drivers going for super high downforce setups at a lot of tracks, and trimming the car out is quite rare. I mean, the benefit of all the speed through the corners is just that great, but sometimes someone does something different. You never know. It might end up working. Looks like Ackerman, meanwhile, has managed to get past Parrish and DeMay, and Nathan Finnegan getting into the top 10, passing John Stevens, up 5 positions so far, which is the second most in the field. Most positions gained so far is 8 for Jason Clapper in P12. But it's good to see that the drivers that made mistakes early on are getting it together and are able to jet their way up this field. But we're only a fifth of the way into this race for now. Plenty more could happen.
To that point, we've got all 22 starters still running and on the lead lap right now. So even though we did have cars kind of have some early spins, haven't been any, call it race-ending contact so far as we check in on probably our biggest battle. So Christophe DeMay is leading this one. And we also have Kevin Parrish, Mickey Friesen, and also Daniel Gallus right here. So they're all chasing what is Bjorn Ackerman, that multicolored green and yellow car just up the road. But I think Bjorn is actually kind of hitting the jets right now. His last lap time of 134.4. Compare that to Kevin Parrish, who we're about to cross the line. Let's see what this most updated one is. A 135.3, so he's actually under threat. Mickey Friesen is that red and blue car going around the outside. Nice and easy done on the straightaway.
Yeah, but it's all gone wrong there. Around goes Mickey Friesen and Kevin Parrish stopping and escaping off the track there. I think might have gotten a bit too much damage from that contact with Mickey. Oh man, that's such a shame. It's not how you want a battle to end. Then Ellis Spice catching the curb at Villeneuve will spin. Jack David Spickett, meanwhile, back to 8th place and trying to chase down AJ Roper. It's all going off here, Joey. We're not even halfway through this race.
That, call it turn 5-6 Villeneuve complex, it is just a doozy today. I mean, we've already seen what a handful of cars be spun around pretty much all by themselves there, either at exit or maybe upsetting the car based off of those apex curbs. So yeah, lots of chaos going on in the early third of this race as we watch Jack David Spickett really get a nice exit out of turn number 15 there, just right in the tire tracks of AJ Roper, but he's not able to close it in on the straightaway at all. This tells me that Jack David Spickett probably brought a little bit of an alternate setup, which he is known to do. He's known to crank the downforce in this thing, kind of like what you were saying, Reese, take advantage through the corners, and he's actually going to take advantage as we jump back to Jason Clapper, making a couple more passes.
Yeah, that's Clapper up to 11th now. And he's got Jean-Francois Boscus next up on his target, and Boscus not that far ahead. Could be a move into Tosa if everything goes his way. You've got to be so careful not to run too far over that green painted concrete on the exit of Villeneuve. Incredibly close between these two, and it looks like Clapper dispatching Jean-Francois Boscus without much issue. Next up on the roster is Jack Kent and Nathan Finnegan, who seem to be slowing each other up a little bit through Piratella. It's such a shame, meanwhile, seeing that Kevin Parrish unfortunately retired from the race, because I was going to point out his lap that was set at that point was a 135.3 or a 35.4. You compare that to Bjorn Ackerman, who'd just gotten past him, set a 134 flat. Ackerman was 1.5 seconds faster than those around him on his recovery, and he'll be getting pretty close to Boscus and Stevens in a few laps' time, I'd wager.
I'm seeing the same thing on timing and scoring. I see a lot of these cars that maybe had those issues early on have a lot of speed, and then call it kind of the mid-pack is, I don't want to say floundering, but maybe a third of a second, half a second slower than those cars that had those early problems. So Yeah, I feel like we're going to get more racing throughout this thing, and it's going to be an intense mid-pack fight. We're not missing anything up there at the front. Topi's still leading Marco, only about a second between them, and they've started to gap it out over Pauli Parton, and I'm curious to see if Pauli can kind of close back in that gap between third and second as we watch Nathan Finnegan right now chasing down Jack Kent in that black number 8 car, but he's got company in the form of that Marlboro theme, Jason Clapper. He is making his way up through the field.
He's up 10 spots as Jason Clapper. Remember, he was one of the 3 drivers that didn't set a time in qualifying, so we weren't aware of his race pace. Obviously, it's good enough for a top 10 or even better, and he's right on the back end of Nathan Finnegan in the ABBA ATS livery. Always awesome to see these retro liveries that are brought out for the Lotus 79 Grand Prix Series. Let's see then what Finnegan will be able to do coming into Rivazza as a new fastest lap goes first to Cortinimi and then to San Filippo. They are chopping and changing and dicing tooth and nail up at the front of the field, but there's still a second between them. Nothing much happening up the front, as you said, as oh no, that was JDS in the wall.
I see the same thing. Jack David Spickett officially hit the tow button, and he is on pit road. I'm going to back it up and see exactly what happened, but that looked like he was down into the Ravazzas, or maybe even coming out of it. It's downhill going into the brake zone, and remember what we've seen out of Villeneuve, that kind of exit curve? If you don't have the car perfectly stable, like right here, it's high-centered in the middle, off he goes. Now, the tow button is a little interesting. I'm surprised he didn't just whip that thing around.
Yeah, maybe it's just full-on frustration from Spickett. He was probably very unhappy with himself for that unfortunate mistake. And it's interesting that you point out the curbs here. Well, the AstroTurf around here is actually the darker green outside the curbs. If it's lighter green, it's painted concrete. But this sort of dark green that you see that Nathan Finnegan was negotiating, that is full-on AstroTurf, and it's a lot slipperier than the light green concrete. So if you hit that on the exit of Rivazza, you are gone.
It is a tricky technical circuit out here at Imola, and it has already claimed several victims, only working lap number 10 right now with our leaders. These drivers are about to click over to lap number 10 themselves, as this is the number 10 car. Jean-Francois Boscus has managed to catch John Stevens, and I shouldn't say catch John Stevens. These two have actually been running together for a handful of laps ever since Jason Clapper was able to work his way around them. And I think, Reese, it was you that was pointing out Bjorn Ackerman's pace. He's actually the one that's closing it up on those two.
Yeah, how about running nearly 2 seconds faster than Stevens and Boscus on the previous lap? That's how fast Ackerman's catching them. He'll be appearing in their mirrors very shortly. Meanwhile, Clapper dispatching Nathan Finnegan, and we'll start to focus on passing Kent. I think all 3 drivers on screen at the moment should be happy with how they've progressed so far. Kent's up 5 spots, Finnegan's up 6, Jason Clapper up 12. Some great beneficiaries coming from this race, thanks to some very big mistakes made by some of our top competitors.
It's almost like these 3 drivers have caught the same wave and are surfing it straight towards the front right now, all very, very similar in pace. And when you talk about racing drivers and being comfortable in the car, sometimes they like a clean visor, a clean windshield out the front, so that way they can just attack the racetrack as they see fit. You know, they can hit every single brake marker and apex exactly how they want. And other drivers, they actually like to have a car in front of them kind of as a little bit of a reference point. But those 3 have been on the move as this fight has finally kind of reared its head. Bjorn Ackerman with a tremendous run out of that final turn there. I shouldn't say final turn, turn number 15, and is right in the slipstream of Jean-Francois Boscus. Now pulls out to the left-hand side. Does have about a 3 or 4 mile an hour top speed advantage and already clears the number 10 going into the brake zone.
Yeah, Boskus didn't fight that one all that much. I think he might have blended out of the throttle to allow Ackerman past. You know, at this point, he realizes that Ackerman's on the recovery and he is much faster, so it's not worth trying to fight him too hard, especially when there's still a little over half the race left to go. Meanwhile, Mickey Friesen, who we last saw getting hit from behind by Kevin Parrish, back down in 19th and trying to make his way past Bruno Araya. Yet another driver on some form of a recovery run here today. Seems that's Imola in a nutshell when it comes to Lotus 79s.
Bruno was one of the cars that did not qualify and then started actually from last in that number 22, as we see Jason Clapper make an outbraking move up at the top of the hill. He gets 7th place away from Jack Kent. I made the comment that I thought they were all three kind of riding the same wave, but it seems like Jason Clapper might be paddling a little bit faster.
Yeah, I think he's got paddle wheels fitted to whatever kayak he's in at the moment. Magnificent pace from Jason, and what a move it was at the top of the hill there. You don't usually see passes happening there in cars as fast as these. You know, I've only really seen moves like that in touring cars, but yeah, happy to see that Clapper has made his way up into the top 7. Be interesting to see how much further he gets, because now that the battles have all spaced out, this one here for the lead is the only one where cars are within a second of each other, at least for the moment.
Marco has started to close it in just that little bit, and the closer he gets, the more powerful that slipstream will become. I'm surprised that this driver right here, Pauli Partanen, has not been able to close it up. It was about 7 seconds when he got into the clean air, and now it's actually increased to about 9 seconds. And look at the livery that's going on. I see that this is now the Pauli special. It is no longer the Yuka Pauli special. Apparently, Pauli Partanen wants his old buddy Yuka to come back and race with them here in the Lotus 79. So Yuka Tolanen, if you are out there and watching this broadcast, you need to come help out your buddy Pauli, because he's kind of sitting here in 3rd place with nobody to play with on the playground right now.
Yeah, can't fly the flag for the team alone. I mean, I think the Finnish flag is certainly being flown by more than one driver. Of course, our leader is Finnish as well, in the form of Topi Kortaniemi, but it's always good to see a little bit of banter between teammates there. Come back, Yuka. Keep Pauli company.
Let's see this battle here. So Nathan Finnegan now is the next one up behind Jack Kent. Remember, we just watched Jason Clapper make the move up into that turn 11 and 12 Variante Alta chicane a couple laps ago. And now Nathan Finnegan in this yellow number 12 is going to kind of take his shot at Mr. Kent up there. See if he can maybe force him into a mistake, or if Jack has got enough pace that he can keep Nathan Finnegan at an arm's length distance.
Yeah, these two have been lapping with each other for quite some time, haven't they? It's been a very intense battle, and it doesn't seem like either of them really has a solid advantage over the other. You know, Jason Clapper dispatched them both pretty swiftly, so now it's all down to Finnegan. You'll have been watching how Clapper made the move on Kent, and it was a daring pass here at Variante Alta. As long as he can get the exit right, he can get it done, but seems like taking a bit less curb at the second apex there is running to Jack Kent's favor.
Let's see how they handle the downhill brake zone here. Both really on their P's and Q's. If anything, I think that Finnegan was able to close it up a little bit there in the brake zone, but the slipstream is always really, really important here at Imola, as we see Araya have some problems down in that Aqua Minerale complex, that turn 9-10 section of the racetrack. It's so tricky because you carry a ton of speed going down into the hill, but you also have that compression. We're going to watch our leaders go through it right here. You've got this flattened section where you get extra grip, and then it goes up into the uphill, so it really compresses all of that load into the car. And as a driver, you have to trust that extra grip.
Indeed you do, as you would in any downforce car, really. The amount of speed that you take. Bruno Araya on the replay here, just taking a bit too much of the curb there, actually. Got onto the speed bump, and that, like I mentioned at the start of the broadcast, it broke the seal. It got the car airborne, and so there wasn't any air flowing through the Venturi tunnels. He lost all of his downforce and slid off.
I think that Mickey Friesen did a very good job, and also props to Bruno because he held the brake and did not come back in front of the competitor who was passing him on the track. So back up to the live action of Nathan Finnegan, still trying to at least get an opportunity to pass Jack Kent here. I thought he was a little bit faster in this downhill brake zone, and once again he's able to close it up, but a little bit of a wiggle there at the middle of the corner to the apex, and then same thing there on turn number 15. So I don't think it's going to happen down this front straightaway. He's going to have to work a little bit harder, get a little bit closer to that black number 8 before the door is officially cracked open.
The thing that I'm noticing between these two is that it's especially evident down at Rivazza. Jack Kent is not being as aggressive over the curbs as Nathan Finnegan is. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. Kent isn't taking the GM... Oh no, another spin for Bjorn Ackerman at Tamburello. That's such a shame for him. He was on a great recovery. Now he's going to have to do all of that work all over again. I'll just finish my point quickly. Basically, it's a trade-off between, you know, taking the geometrically faster line through the corner for Finnegan, but a more stable platform for Jack Kent, working to his benefit. But Bjorn Ackerman evidently not working to his own benefit much here. I guess we're going to take a look at what's happened to him.
I think he's just going to jump those curbs that we've been talking about all race long.
Oh, yep, there we go.
Into that first chicane, and just as you said, it kind of breaks that aerodynamic, that airflow seal under the car, and it really upsets the platform. Combine that with a slow speed, these things are not very good on mechanical grip. But Nathan Finnegan is officially alongside Jack Kent in the strong area that he can outbrake that number 8, still side by side going into turn number 15. Look at the momentum carried, and now he spins himself out. They're both going to spin off to driver's left. One of them makes contact with the tire wall, and now they're both waiting to turn themselves around.
Oh, unfortunately for Jack Kent, Finnegan's going to beat him back onto the racetrack there, and they're both losing time. Fortunately for Kent, pit lane is right there, so he can get that damage repaired instantly. But, oh man, what a horrible end to that battle. And it's so unfortunate because neither driver did anything wrong necessarily there. It wasn't a case of them taking each other out. One of them just lost it, and the other one ran into him.
Spot on, right? It was great racing. It was side-by-side, respectful racing going into turn number 14. I thought that Jack Kent did a huge move around the outside of 15 to hang on to it, but what it did is it kind of forced him a little bit too far outside to the right and then kind of bottomed out the curb. We're going to get the replay here, and then unfortunately Finnegan can't avoid as the spinning Jack Kent comes across.
Yeah, and unfortunately a bit too much of a hit to the wall there for Jack Kent. Finnegan, fortunately, just avoiding getting into the tire bundles there. But it's like what I said before with Jack David Spickett and the reason for his retirement. It's that exit curb at Rivazza 2, that slippery dark green AstroTurf. You put too much of your right wheels on that and it just spins the wheels up on the exit, and the car snaps on you, and there's nothing you do to recover.
And it's also tough as we watch Jason Clapper really utilize the slipstream on AJ Roper going defensive in the middle, but Clapper deep on the brakes. Can they keep it off of each other? Yes, but now it feeds back to the left. Can Clapper do an over-under? This is heading into that tricky, call it Villeneuve chicane, turns 5 and 6, where we've seen so many problems on the exit curbs. Looks like both of them are going to keep it neat and tidy. And now up to turn number 7, Tosa, the Tosa hairpin. Very uphill here. You can't really see it on this camera angle, but you can really utilize the front tires as well as feeding the throttle in very, very early. But I think this is going to be a kind of a pass waiting to happen. He still has a handful plus laps and a little bit more pace than that number 14.
Yeah, certainly does. It's just a case of making the move in the right spot. Unfortunately, Jack Kent, well, he was able to get the car repaired from what I could see, but he pulled out of his box, toured down halfway through pit lane, and then just stopped again. And now, unfortunately, he is out of the race. So that's yet another driver that we have lost, joining Ellis Spice, Jack David Spickett, and Kevin Barish. Now, 4 retirements from this race so far. And Bjorn Ackerman, once again, another spin. Imola is not his friend. And considering how he had the same kinds of issues at Zolder last week, I think he's just not a fan of circuits with plenty of corners and high curbs.
Hey, you know what? I'm the same way. The more stuff you put in my way, the less of a fan of it. You know, what is it, the Riverside line that, oh, that's a chicane? You mean the straight part with grass in the way? That's more like how I approach a racetrack. And knowing Bjorn Ackerman, he is one of the more aggressive drivers out there. We see him in the 49s, we see him in the 79s, we see him in the IMSA vintage stuff. So he's definitely a driver that knows his way around these cars and around these racetracks. But I will say, he is a little bit more on the aggressive side, trying to grab those last little few tenths, trying to cut those apexes, and sometimes, Reese, it can bite back.
Yeah, you can't do that at this place, especially at Acqua Minerale. You know, the curbs are so harsh, those speed bumps on the insides of the corners are not your friend, you know? You got to do what the likes of Clapper and Roper just did and stay off those curbs as the pace is increasing at the front of the field. You can run over these curbs pretty nicely. Most cars cope just fine with them. But when it comes to those speed bumps, man, you do not want to go anywhere near them in these cars. But what great pace from Cortanimi and Sanfilippo at the front of the field into the 1-minute 30s for the first time. They are head and shoulders above the rest of the field.
It's very impressive what they're doing as we stay here with this battle. It is the closest fight that we've got on the racetrack currently, at least inside the top 10. So Jason Clapper, the top speed, now coming into advantage. AJ Roper simply pulls to the right side. I think that was a wave on by. Say, Jason, you know what? I do think you're a little bit faster here. There's too much time left. I don't want to kind of risk this 7th place finish. I want to take these points and get out of here. So let Jason Clapper get about and on his way. I mentioned that was the closest fight inside the top 10. Well, this is for what is 15th place. Patrick Samaran in this white number 16 car, currently leading Carlos Lezcano in the number 19.
Indeed, Frenchman versus a Mexican. This is certainly a matchup for the ages. Let's see in the battle for 15th place what Carlos will be able to do here, running a retro Brabham livery, it seems. I was always a fan of that Parmalat BT60, I believe. I'm not too sure exactly what car it was, but around about 1982, 1983 era Brabham being evoked there in that livery. Carlos now trying his best to find his way past Patrick, who's definitely had his fair share of issues. He's down 4 spots from where he started. Meanwhile, Carlos is up 3, largely taking advantage of the problems for Kent, Spice, Spickett, and Parrish. They'll be getting ever closer as time goes on. Speaking of close, here's Nathan Finnegan. Going to try and get past Jean-Francois Boscus and further into the top 10 once more. And, well, see again, he takes a lot of that inside curb, and it's to his benefit this time. He's in the slipstream of Boscus, and we might see a move at Tamburello.
Oh,
in fact, even before, across the start-finish line.
Jean-Francois Boscus must just have a ton of downforce cranked into it, or he was very light on that gas pedal, let Nathan Finnegan by. Remember, this yellow number 12 car had that little bit of an incident earlier on, so he's one of those faster guys that is making their way up through the field. And since you had mentioned Brabham, you know, I got to give a shout out to my old buddy, Matt Brabham, Matty Brabs out there. Got to spend a bunch of time with the Brabham family when one of my best friends, Shelby Blackstock, was racing Indy Lights over there with them as we check in on Toby Cortiniami. Under a handful of laps left now, 1.8, call it 2 seconds in front of Marco Sanfilippo. And all he's got to do is just hit his apexes, hit every single corner. He'll also have to navigate a little bit of lap traffic, but given that he's got a 2-second buffer, he can afford to be a little bit generous, but he can't just afford to let half a lap go by.
Yeah, certainly. Well, Cottoniemi now experiencing that traffic. This is the first time he'll have come up on another car since the very start of the race. Cottoniemi is one of only 4 cars in the field that still occupy the same position they started in. The others being Danilo Sanfilippo in 4th, Boscus in 10th, and Hanna Fechner down in 14th. And Bruno Araya will let our overall race leader go on the way into Variante Alta. Next up is, of course, Mickey Friesen. And Cottoniemi, he's enjoyed a solid lead over Sanfilippo pretty much the whole way. The two of them haven't really battled per se, but I'm sure Cottoniemi will be hoping that life is made a little more difficult for Marco here so he can increase the gap and be able to back off a little bit towards the end.
Well, I think it was the opposite for Topi. Remember, it was about 1.8 or 2 seconds is what I called it entering the first couple turns here the previous lap. It has shrunk now down to 1.3 seconds. So call it 3/4 of a second taken out between our 2 leaders. Marco has got the bit between his teeth, and he's only got, call it 4 laps, 3.5 laps left in this thing to really hunt down that black number 1. And then not only hunt him down, but also be close enough to make a move on him. That's the other thing, is that we've seen these two pretty much be together as a pair, but Marco hasn't ever been close enough to actually threaten for the lead.
Yeah, you know, he'll get a fastest lap, and Topi Cottoniemi will respond almost instantly with a fastest lap of his own. They're just monitoring each other's pace, driving as hard as they possibly can at the front of this field, and you can't put anything between them in pace. They just need to be a couple of car lengths closer. Sanfilippo, I think in particular, has got to be wary of losing too much time here, because the gap's about 1.2, 1.3 at the moment. You only really start getting slipstream effect from about 1.5 seconds back down the long straight. So he falls outside that margin, and Cottoniemi is gone.
To put it into perspective on how much really Marco Sanfilippo has picked up his pace in the last couple of seasons, I mean, Pauli and Yuka used to dominate the Lotus 79s, as we see Finnegan go around John Stevens now. That's the second of the Marlboro cars, but John is actually putting up a little bit of a fight here. Finnegan around the outside of Piratella. That was a tough one, and a big wiggle on the exit. Looks like he's going to maintain control. Let's see if he's able to execute 9 and 10 without any mistakes, and then he should be able to pull away from, call it this 3-pack here. But I was going to mention just the pace increase from Marco. It's not easy to really take it from already a top level to call it into alien level. And that's exactly what Marco has done. It's extremely impressive, and he's right up there challenging the best of them in the 79s.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see the development of many of these drivers. And, you know, when you've been doing this commentating thing as long as we have, Joey, you tend to see names pop up time and time again. You follow their careers in a sense, and it's always awesome to see you know, a change and a gradual building of skill and pace from someone over the years, and they get rewarded for their efforts. And both of the Sanfilippos, I think, are certainly in that upper echelon at the moment when it comes to Lotus 79 racing.
Coming around to 2 laps to go, and what has happened to the 2-second lead that once was, because Marco is now less than a half a second behind Topi. So the race is on up front. It took us 24 laps to get here, but let's see if this kind of, call it rouge and black number 3, has what it takes to start to hunt down and really threaten our leader, because I had mentioned that he's been close a few times, but he hasn't been close enough to show the nose in the mirror and really make Cottoniemi maybe squirm a little bit or get a little bit nervous. But what was half a second at turn number 2 and 3 is now down to 0.4 of a second, using a little bit of that slipstream.
Yeah, and it was also a little bit of adverse traffic affecting Courteniemi. Initially, it was Patrick Samaran coming into Villeneuve, and then Courteniemi had to back off a huge amount behind Carlos Lezcano at Variante Alta. Wasn't quite able to get alongside him to make the move, so had to have a couple of goes at getting past him on the exit. Now, Marco Sanfilippo sees his chance. The gap is ever decreasing. Bit of slipstream down here to Rivazza 1. Let's see who gets the best exit. Much more aggressive entry there from Marco. And they both take a very aggressive line across Rivazza 2. But here is where the slipstream really starts to kick in, when you're within half a second of the car ahead and right in time for the white flag.
1 lap remaining here at Imola. Is Marco gonna make a lunge into turn number 2? He's not close enough, but I think he's actually running a little bit more downforce than our leader, and as long as he stayed close on that front straightaway, it's gonna give him the opportunity. If you ask me, Reese, I'm looking towards that turn 11-12 chicane where he was ultra close last time.
Absolutely. On the exit of Tosa, meanwhile, much more of the AstroTurf used for Topi Courteniemi, and the exit is with our number 1 for the time being, but through Piratella. I was expecting Marco to make up a bit more time there, but it seems that is not the case. This is one of the places where you can make a big mistake down at Acqua Minerale, but they both managed to just... Oh, they are sliding their way through every corner here. There's a little bit of extra traffic ahead. I'm wondering if that's going to affect Topi here.
Marco was so fast through that chicane right there the previous lap, but our leader put the power down, laid the treads coming off of those tires, and said, see you later. He's got 1 brake zone left. Oh, maybe one more downshift right here. Put the power down coming out of turn number 15. It was a challenge from Marco Sanfilippo, but Topi Courteniemi hangs on for the win here in the Lotus 79s.
Brilliant stuff. He managed to get that 0.3 of a second gap all the way out to nearly 0.8 by the very end, and takes the fastest lap on the final lap for good measure. Brilliant drive from Topi Courteniemi. And Pauli Partanen, well, he had a slow start. He lost a lot of time to our front 2, but managing to recover to 3rd, and it's a lonely 3rd. Meanwhile, some drama on the final lap. Christophe Demey, unfortunately, spinning out of Tosa.
Yeah, I think he was battling there with John Stevens and Jean-Francois Boscus. There was a lot of stuff. Dylan Freckleton right here comes home with a nice 5th place finish. I think it's credit to these front 2. I mean, that only the top 5 cars have actually finished so far. Here comes 6th place right now, Jason Clapper. Oh, only a mere 46 seconds back. AJ Roper comes across the line. We're going to take a look at all these cars coming down the hill through the Ravazzas and out onto the front straightaway. But man, Reese, what a race up front. I'm going to give credit to Marco because he kept our leader honest the entire time.
Yeah, he certainly did. Brilliant job from Marco Sanfilippo, but also to Topi as well for absorbing all of that pressure and using it to fuel his run on the final lap. Björn Ackermann, meanwhile, crossing the line in 11th place. It was an up and down race for Björn, but ultimately he should be happy that he was able to at least get to the finish. It's more than you can say for a few drivers in this race.
Think we've got the last of them coming across the line, so we have your official results. It is Topi Courteniemi, your winner here at Imola. Marco Sanfilippo kept him honest the entire 25 laps, and really those last few put our leader under threat. Pauli Partanen tried to hang on, but like you heard Reese say, it was a slow start, had to make his way through the field, and then ultimately didn't have the pace. He needs his buddy Jukka Tolvanen to come back and maybe help him out with that setup. He finishes 3rd. Danilo Sanfilippo, we didn't talk about Danilo too much. He finishes in 4th. Dylan Freckleton back here 5th. Jason Clapper, our biggest mover of the day, up 14 to finish in 6th. AJ Roper 7th. Nathan Finnegan 8th. John Stevens 9th. And Jean-Francois Boscus in 10th.
Björn Ackermann, well, he started within the top 10, but a few spins around this Italian circuit, ultimately putting him in 11th. Daniel Gallis and Christophe Demey, along with Hannah Fechner, the last finishers on the lead lap. Lescano, Samaran, Araya, and Friesen take the checkered flag, but a lap down. And unfortunately, we saw retirements from Ellis Spice, Jack Kent, Jack David Spickett, and Kevin Parrish. And those last two particularly difficult to swallow for the both of them. They're two very big competitors in this series. And you never know, they might have to use that as one of their drop rounds by the time the season comes to an end.
The big name there was definitely JDS, Jack David Spickett. Remember, last season's champion. So, yeah, definitely not a good round. There are several drop weeks built into the season, so the drivers can use those as they see fit, but you always want to score maximum points. You never want to kind of have to use your lifeline. It looks like we've got Pauli Partanen lined up right now, our third place finisher. We're going to bring him right on down into the booth. Pauli, congratulations on the third place, although it looks like a little bit of a lonely race. You could have used a buddy out there.
Yeah, I could have used a buddy out there. I messed up the start so badly. I forgot to do a first gear and it was a neutral, so I lost the race just before it even started. But yeah, it was a lonely race. I was just chilling, not even trying to be fast because I was so pissed for myself.
So I noticed the updated livery on the car. We had to talk about it a little bit during the broadcast. And is this the cry to have Jukka come out? I miss him too.
Yeah, I sent Jukka a message that you should watch this broadcast, and that's all I said to him. So yeah, this is message to Jukka, come back please.
I love it. Thank you so much, Pauli, for coming out and racing with us. Are you going to be showing up more throughout the rest of the season? Is that what we're going to expect from you?
Yeah, I think I will race next week. I'm super happy to see new spa, updated spa, so that will be something. And I think I will get Jukka next race also. So we will see.
That is awesome to hear. Thank you so much, Pauli, for coming out and racing with us. Is there anybody that you want to say hi to?
Hello, Jukka. Nothing else. Bye.
That was Pauli Partanen finishing in the third place position here today. It also seems like our winner, Topi Kortiniemi, has caught up with Reese.
Indeed. Welcome, Topi. Fantastic job there, absorbing all the pressure from Marco Sanfilippo, leading all the way. Obviously, the numbers don't tell the full story. How was it for you out there?
Was I pressured? I didn't know this.
That's a good attitude to have.
Yeah, I noticed after the first lap that I looked at the relative and noticed that I have a little bit more straight line speed than Marco, so I was pretty confident he couldn't make the pass unless I make a major mistake. So I dialed it down a bit just to be safe, you know.
Yeah, a very difficult circuit indeed with these massive curbs. They play havoc with the downforce on these cars. They depend so much on you being smooth and not pushing too hard over the bumps.
Oh yeah, true. Like, it's one of the rare cases that I run a pretty soft suspension just to make the curbs manageable, because otherwise the car just darts everywhere and it's a little bit hairy to try to drive fast here.
Well, going forward in the season, any tracks that you're particularly looking forward to?
What do we have? We have Spa. It's one good track. We had a very good race with Pauli about a year ago, so I'm looking forward to race him again there. And what's after that? You remember?
I do not. It's not quite in my mind at the present time.
Oh, Willow Springs is going to be great, and Donington, I'm going to like Bathurst, and Monza,
really
and Cadwell.
That's going to be fantastic. I'm really hoping that I'm on the roster for Bathurst, because that's going to be a fun round of the series, Topi. Well, regardless, a great haul of points for you in the championship. Anyone that you want to give a shout out to for your result today?
Oh yeah, Pauli, we were kind of collaborating before the race, and unfortunately he was third. We was planning that we were P2, P1, but it is what it is. Cheers to Pauli.
Brilliant stuff from Topi Kotanimi. Thanks very much for joining us, mate, and we definitely hope that we'll get a chance to speak to you again soon. Meanwhile, looks like that's our interviews done now, Joey, and we can say our goodbyes and look forward to next week.
Yeah, certainly looking forward to the next one. Thank you to the team today. That includes Daniel, Christian, Reese, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, website, and merchandise store. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. As you heard the competitor saying, the next race for the Lotus 79s is at the new updated Spa next week, Sunday, October 6th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out all the other broadcasts listed here. There is another race coming up on GSRC later today. It is round number 8 of the MX5 World Sim Series doubleheader, Phillip Island and Oschersleben. That is at 3:50 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.